morning or afternoon or whatever it happens to be because we're all home all the time. It doesn't really matter whether it's day or night. This is a project I built a while ago, and it has to do with a lot of electronics and some computer science and programming and stuff. So I figured it'd be a good time to review this guy and how I did this and what I was aiming to do, and give you some ideas on maybe your own projects that you can do while you're home hanging out all day. All right. This is a wooden box I built to contain a Raspberry Pi. PiCade is what it's called. So the idea behind it is that a Raspberry Pi runs emulators for a whole slew of video games that used to exist on old console systems. So your Nintendo 64 and your SNES and your Sega Genesis and all those things. Those were the kind of games that I was trying to emulate, the old school ones. You can find some of these in arcade games, right? So using the arcade style buttons, I purchased this whole set online, and then built this container to hold it so it's modular, so I can carry it with us. We could go to a party, or bring it to a friend's house or something. Bring it to school, which I've done over the years. Some hookups to send it to the TV and to get power, as well as this is the power switch that comes with the Raspberry Pi that I wired on the outside of the box. So I'll take this top off and show you how the insides work, and then we can hook it up and see how it loads. Right. So from a woodworking standpoint, this is just a pine box with a piece of plywood on the bottom and a piece of Luan. I've spray painted silver on the top. If you take out the 6 or 8 screws around it, there are a whole bunch of wires on the inside that connect all of those buttons to the control board. And I'm going to disconnect some of those so I can remove this more easily. The easiest one is the USB connector for that side and the USB connector on this side. Okay. That allows us to move it so we can unplug the joystick and then the blue joystick, and then this is completely separate. So let me come around here. So each button, these are all just momentary switches. Each one has a positive and negative line, which you can see, and they connect to a USB control board right here. So this converts all of those buttons into USBs, and it connects to this corner here, which goes via USB to the Arduino, right? The insides of the mechanism are pretty simple. You'll notice a keyboard there, which I'll show you in a second. This is our Raspberry Pi computer in the corner here. Raspberry Pis are a physical computing platform. They're very inexpensive. It's relatively powerful for what they cost. They have USB, HDMI, audio in and out, Ethernet, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, all that good stuff. So this thing actually is able to be on my home network, and when I want to add new games to it, I don't even have to open all of this. I can find it on my network and send the game or the emulator over Wi-Fi and send it right to the computer, which is kind of cool. These are the 2 joystick mounts, which have to be pretty rugged. So these are on standoffs off the base because these take a lot of abuse. I have a 7-year-old and a 5-year-old, so they are just beating these things to death as they use them, right? And the keyboard, which is a magnetic latch in here, comes out the front when you open it, right? So normally it is in the closed position. You press on the magnets and it comes out. Raspberry Pi requires you to log in, which is good for 2 reasons. One, it keeps your Raspberry Pi relatively secure, and for me, it stops my kids from getting up in the middle of the night and playing video games when we don't want them to. So they need me or my wife to log on. So you need a keyboard so you can enter the user and password to get in. All right. That's also a Bluetooth keyboard, so it's not even connected. It's just got a little connector guy that connects to the Raspberry Pi. Otherwise, it is pretty simplistic. Some of the wiring you need to know is that power and HDMI need to go to the Raspberry Pi here, and they run through this switch on the outside of the box, and then through these cables here to this white plate. Show you here. This white plate, I 3D printed this plate so that it would cover the hole that I needed to make. And I bought this on Amazon, this USB and HDMI adapter. they need to be both female, so you can plug in regular HDMI cables, and then it sits flush. So if you were to drop it or something, it doesn't have cables sticking out of it, right? HDMI cables are easy enough to find. So I bought a bunch of these on Amazon. They're 15 feet long, so you can plug it into the TV and go sit at the coffee table or on the couch and play. That's not the problem. The problem is power. Sending the 5 volts DC that this thing needs over 15 feet ends up typically having a voltage drop. Raspberry Pis need 5 volts, and they need roughly 2.5 amps to run correctly. And if that fluctuates, which it does over 15 or 20 feet with kids using different buttons and mashing the keys and stuff, that power gets eaten up. So trying to find, this is a 3 amp USB like phone charger. Finding one of these was actually really, really hard because you have to have enough power to run the Raspberry Pi, the keyboard, the joysticks, all those buttons. Luckily, I don't have any lights or anything on here that also have to operate, and the screen is, the TV or something is on its own power. But yeah, trying to find a USB cable that was 15 feet long wasn't bad. It was this guy, a 3 amp power supply, was really the hard part. But I got one. If you upgrade to the new Raspberry Pi, it will run better, but it also draws more power. So you got to find the happy medium. I think this is a Raspberry Pi B, I believe. It's in a case, so it's hard to say. But yeah, I put this all kind of together in an afternoon. I drilled some holes and things to run it together. Buying all the cables and parts wasn't hard on Amazon. These kits are actually on Amazon. You could buy the joysticks and the buttons and everything together. This keyboard isn't very skinny. I was looking for the smallest, thinnest keyboard I could find to fit inside this box. And that's kind of it. The toughest part was the power adapter. That was it. In terms of wiring, it's real easy because it's all kind of plug and play. There was a little bit of wiring for the buttons, but again, they just kind of press on. There's little spade connector guys, so they're really not held on by much. They just clip in. I hot glued the boards in so they don't run away. You are limited by the length of these, but other than that, it came out pretty good. For a personal type project, it was pretty easy to do. Raspberry Pi instructions are really easy. The emulators you can find online, PiCade is all, and Raspberry Pi is all open source, so you can find everything you need online. There's a million YouTube videos on how to do this. So I would suggest if you want to try something like this, it's not a huge undertaking. You don't need to build this whole box and things. You could, if you buy the PiCade kit, the cardboard box it comes in, you can mount all the buttons too, so you have like a box already made. You don't need to make it out of wood. It was a pretty fun project. The kids really enjoy playing with it. You can't complain. It's got lots and lots of games, and you can keep changing them as you go, which is pretty awesome.